Despite the attacks, despite the persecution, that has not hindered the growth of the church. The numbers of believing people increases every day. The numbers of young people going to the seminaries, becoming priests, becoming nuns, increases every day.
Welcome, everyone, to our podcast, Missional Catholics. This is an opportunity for me to speak with members of our own archdiocese and people from beyond about their baptismal vocation and then how they are cooperating with the Holy Spirit to live out the mission of Jesus in their particular circumstances. So today it's a real pleasure and a privilege to welcome a priest who I've gotten to know very well in recent years, Father Ahmadu Michael Gadache. Father Gadache is the pastor of St. Bernard's Parish in Omaha and a priest of the Diocese of Minna in Nigeria. So we're blessed here to have a special relationship with the Diocese of Minna. The bishop there and myself have established a way for priests from the Diocese of Minna to be involved in ministry here for a time in the Archdiocese of Omaha. That's been a great blessing for us, and Father Gadache was kind of a pioneer of that to help pave the way to make that possible. Because Father's growing up years and his early years as a priest and a certain considerable amount of experience as a priest were in a place far from here and in a culture different from my own, I thought it might be helpful to people in Omaha and in this archdiocese and elsewhere for us to have a conversation just about the Father's perspective of the church here as he's experiencing it as a pastor in one of our parishes, but then also share some of his experiences from back home. And in particular, many people may not be aware that there's a fairly severe persecution of Catholics in many places in the country of Nigeria, and Father's had some firsthand experience of that. So we often get concerned about issues of religious liberty here in our country and the desire to be able to live our faith and practice it in freedom. It's important for us to know that opportunity is very seriously threatened in some other places for brothers and sisters of ours who share our Catholic faith. So, Father Gadache, welcome to our podcast. Thanks so much for taking the time to be with me today. Father Gadache, could we begin with you just sharing a little bit about your background, maybe growing up in your family, if your family was Catholics, or if you were part of the Catholic Church growing up, or if you came to the church later on, and then maybe how you were able to discern a call to the priesthood.
Thank you very much, Archbishop. I feel really honored to have this opportunity to be in a podcast with you. Yes, I am from Nigeria, from Niger State. The name of the place I come from is Guni. Guni is a small village in Munya local government area of Niger State. So I was born into a Catholic family, and because my dad and mom we are Catholics before I was born, but dad and mom were not born Christians, not even Christians. So my dad typically came from a traditional religion family, and his own older siblings became Muslims. So that's the reason for our family name, Ahmadu. Ahmadu is an Islamic name. So typically, I will say we have an Islamic foundation in our family. But like I said, I wasn't born Muslim because dad and mom were already Catholics. So born exactly 50 years ago, I turned 50 this year, March 3rd. I have an older brother, Innocent, and then younger siblings. I am second in the family. So dad and mom showed us the path to Christianity, the path to Catholicism, They brought us to church, and it was really helpful. I picked up from there. I was mainly the family member who was more into church life and activities. I served at Mass, helped in the church in different ways. And at the time, we had mostly missionaries from Ireland, the St. Patrick Fathers. And to be very honest, I never knew that a black-skinned person could be a priest.
Yeah.
So majority of the missionaries were from Ireland. As children, we used to think possibly they just fell from heaven. So, but working closely as an altar server and all of that, I got to know more about the Catholic Church, going to catechism, receiving First Holy Communion, being confirmed. And then the opportunity came through the pastor in my village church at the time to send young people to the minor seminary far away from home, a place called Zaria. So the priest sold the idea to my parents. Dad didn't really want it, but my mom was up to it. She was excited about it, and she gave me the encouragement to go for it. So that is how I went to Zaria, far away from home.
Sorry to interrupt. Could I just ask, is the minor seminary, would that be something equivalent to a high school
Yes.
age here in the U.S.?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's like the high school. So I went out there. So aside from studying the conventional education, we had a formation and an introduction to the life of the priesthood, and that is where the inspiration came from. So being with the missionary priests and how very good they were to us, and now a missionary priest was helping me to go to school, paying my fees and all of that. I really didn't want to be a disappointment. I wanted to make him proud, to make him happy, so that he will be happy he didn't waste the money to send me to school. So, and in the process, I developed the interest to go on to the major seminary. And in my diocese at the time, if you attended a minor seminary, you only needed to pass your exams. You were sure to continue to the major seminary. And that is what happened to me. I finished from the minor seminary, went to the major seminary, and my journey was like straight, uninterrupted, and I was ordained a priest afterwards.
How old were you when you were ordained?
I was ordained at 30. I was 30 years old when I was ordained. So I am 20 this year as a priest. June 25 is my ordination anniversary.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you, Your Grace.
Now, so you then just briefly, what were some of your responsibilities as a priest? Were you a parish priest, or have duties with the diocese? Or?
Yes, my first assignment was working with my bishop in his office. So the very day I was ordained, I was with my bishop throughout that evening, not with my family, and that was very unusual. And the reason is because I was ordained far away from home in Kaduna, and Kaduna is a different diocese. We have a priest here from the Archdiocese of Kaduna. So the seminary in Kaduna planned to ordain the first graduates from that seminary. So I was privileged to be in that first set. So we ordained deacons and ordained priests in the seminary. So my bishop simply picked me after the ordination, and we traveled back to Minna together. So I spent my ordination day with my bishop, drove to his house after several hours, and I heard a lot of stories, a lot of expectations, and that very day he told me what my assignment will be. So first of all, I worked with the chancellor of the diocese as his assistant, both in the chancery and in the parish, because he was a pastor as well. And then I became the secretary of the bishop. In every meeting he attended, I had to take the notes and take minutes for him. So that was my first experience.
That's going to be a lot of time off purgatory in case you need it.
So, and that has helped me so much. I look back and I am thankful to God that I had those opportunities to learn directly from my bishop and some of the experienced priests at the time. So I was barely 2 months ordained when I got my official first assignment in the diocese as the Director for Justice, Peace, and Development. And I worked in that office for 12 years in my diocese. After about 6 months, I got a second assignment, and that was to the Office of Vocations. So I worked as an Assistant Vocations Director and doubled as the Secretary of that committee. The office I eventually took over because the Vocation Director at the time later became the Vicar General and now the Auxiliary Bishop of my diocese. So I took over that responsibility from him. And second year into my ordination, I was made pastor of a church. So a small community, but with several smaller churches. We call them outstations. Mm-hmm. So I worked in that parish for about 6 years. And in my 6th year in that parish, that was when we had the very bad bomb attack in my diocese. It was a Christmas day in 2011 that a suicide bomber attacked one of our churches, St. Teresa's Church in Madala. That attack killed 46 people there and then. About 117 others were injured. Some were maimed for life. And that was what moved me away from the parish I had been for 6 years, because I worked in the Office of Justice and Peace, being the social justice officer for the diocese. I had to move as a necessity to the environment where this happened. So I worked with the victims from that time until I came to Omaha.
That was a horrific event and must have been a very powerful experience for you and a very horrible experience for that community and beyond. So maybe set the context for that a little, if you would. So I gather that this wasn't just one crazed person, who decided to do this, but maybe part of a bigger cultural context, this attack on the Catholic Church and on the people there.
So before this time, religious crises, religious riots, persecution of Christians had been on. Like, it's been a long time thing. But this whole new strategy of attacking and killing people started becoming a big thing from 2011 that it happened in my diocese. That was one of the first big attacks in my country. So the suicide bomber drove in a car, and the bomb was in the car. And he was intercepted at the entrance to the church. And during that period of interrogation, that will have been what delayed his plans. So the delay at the gate allowed the bomb to detonate right at the entrance. But because it was the entrance to the church, and coincidentally at the end of Mass, on Christmas Day, it was a Christmas Day. So as people were coming out from the church, the bomb detonated, and all those who were outside already, the people who were trying to interrogate the driver, everyone who was around that vehicle at the time, they died. It was a very terrific situation. We were picking flesh of humans, bits and pieces all around. It wasn't a good sight to behold. Each time I talk about that story, it's the whole thing comes back to my mind. And but that's the reality. That was what happened. And interestingly, a group known as Boko Haram claimed responsibility, because that's what they did. From that instance, if they attacked a community or killed people, they will announce that they did it because they wanted to make a statement. So that was the beginning of the attacks, and it only continued until today. They have not stopped.
Mm-hmm. Have there been some personal attacks on priests, too, I think, in your diocese and in other places? Is that the case?
The same church that was attacked on that Christmas day, interestingly, the pastor of that church at the time, Father Isaac Achi, was later killed in a different parish years later. Now, Father Isaac happened to have been a close family member because Father Isaac was related to my mom. On a very good day, we call him Uncle, Uncle Isaac. So Father Isaac was attacked in the rectory at night. Himself and the associate were in that attack, but the associate survived with gun wounds. But Father was killed in the rectory, and then they set the rectory on fire. So he was burnt beyond recognition in that attack.
This is also Boko Haram who
Yes, now
claim the...
it's another group, but with the same agenda. So this other group is known as bandits, but it's also an Islamic sect. So Boko Haram, the bandits, they practically do the same thing. They attack people, they kill people, and sometimes they take people to get a ransom in return. And they have attacked many other churches. In my diocese, Father Gadache was also killed by the same group. Some other priests who were attacked, some were taken away, and the ransom had to be paid. And some of them survived, but some did not.
What's their I don't know, agenda? That's kind of a strange word to use for it, but it is the desire to eliminate Christianity or Catholicism? Is it simply to gain power for themselves by terrorizing? Is a combination of things? I mean, it's horrific what you're describing, and it's hard to imagine why, but there must be a reason why, or maybe several reasons. Not a legitimate reason, of course, but...
Yeah, so Christianity is associated to the Western world.
Yeah.
So as far as they are concerned, the word Boko Haram can be translated to mean Western education is a taboo, should be prohibited. So Christianity is easily identified as a Western religion. So they attack with a statement. They want to Islamize everyone, every place. But in recent times, it didn't just end with that religious tension and bias, but it's also political. Because a lot of our politicians have used these groups as political thugs. And when they are no longer useful to them, they let them go and they continue with their trade. So some of these sects are political thugs who simply join these terror groups and terrorize people, kill people at will.
So it's, as you were describing your growing up and your formation for the priesthood, it just strikes me that the Catholic Church in Nigeria is young, I think very vibrant, so growing. And so what would be the effect, would you say, of these very horrific attacks on the church, these persecutions, on the faith life of the people, the willingness of people to become Catholic or practice their faith? And then also, you described you were the vocation director, so I think, again, my understanding, you have many vocations. Is that still the case? Does the persecution scare people away, or how would you describe that?
The church teaches that the blood of the martyrs is the seed of the church. Yeah. And I think that statement is practically true for us in Nigeria. Despite the attacks, despite the persecution, that has not hindered the growth of the church. The numbers of believing people increases every day. The numbers of young people going to the seminaries, becoming priests, becoming nuns, increases every day. So that has not stopped the growth of Catholicism in Nigeria. So in a way, it fuels it the more. For example, the church that was attacked, St. Teresa's Madela, on Christmas Day in 2011. It was one parish, and I reported to that parish the next day, because the very day this happened, we all went as sympathizers, trying to see how we could help. I went there with my staff from the office, the social justice office, and there and then the bishop told me, you need to move from your parish and report to this parish because we need you on ground. That one parish, in 1 year, became 4 parishes. In 1 year. So we had other smaller churches under that one parish, and instead of people being scared and going away, the churches were packed even the more. Even the church that was attacked, that next day we had mass in that church, there were no empty seats in the building. So the more the persecutions, the more people come to God. They come to Jesus. They come to a believing community. They want to be part of this community that put their trust in God. So that trust, that confidence in God's guidance and protection is like a uniting factor that brings people more and more to church.
A very powerful witness. So thanks for sharing those experiences, and thank you for being ready when your bishop asked to just go right there with your staff and with others to first just be with the people and then help. I'm sure you were a big help, but we know the Holy Spirit was giving many powerful gifts, and as you described, people, rather than running away, ready to embrace their faith even more. I get the sense that beyond the locations, specific locations like this, where there's been a horrific kind of persecution, that really throughout your diocese and throughout the country, the church is growing. And talk to us a little bit about something that we would love to see that here. You know, in our own archdiocese, we're dedicating ourselves to the works of evangelization and trying to really discern how we can be more deeply involved in the mission of the Lord, really, to share the light of the gospel here. But that's the day-to-day experience, I think, in your Diocese of Minna and other places. So talk a little bit about how that happens in more ordinary circumstances. So there's these sort of crisis moments where people's faith is severely tested, and you describe a beautiful response. But is parents teaching children? Is it neighbors influencing neighbors? Is it the works of justice and peace that attract people? Would your neighbors be finding attractive about Christianity that draws them? Does that make sense?
Yes.
What I'm asking.
A lot of factors, and I will describe it to be a lot of everyday life experiences. So first of all, the cultural context is a very important factor. Our setting in Nigeria, where I come from, community life is key. That individualistic kind of life is not commonly known, it's not found. I could sleep in my neighbor's house, and my family knows I'm there, I'm fine. We hang out together. I can just be in the next house and food is served. I will also be given food to eat. So community life. So a child, for example, belongs to everybody in the community. So the same way my dad and mom will educate me, will like me to be formed with good manners, to be a good person, my neighbors will do the same. We don't have any bias about that. So the cultural context, the community spirit is key to this whole growth and unity, the togetherness that we enjoy. And in where I grew up, if we are going to church, for example, maybe friends from 5, 6, 7 different households, we just walk to church together. In our community, if there were people who had vehicles like cars to drive to church. It wouldn't be more than 3, 4, 5 people back then. We just walked to church, and you walk as you pass by your neighbor's house, you call your friend, hey, are you not going to church today? And he say, hey, wait for me. And that's how life was. We just went that way. And so you're growing not by yourself, but with other people. And so the growth, the experience is not just one person's experience, it's a community experience. So in that situation, even when challenges come, it's easier to deal with, it's easier to handle because you're not in it alone. And it was difficult for someone to run into problems because you will be with someone, somebody will have seen it happen because of the community life. I practically will know everybody in my village. If somebody was new in the village, we didn't need more than just few hours to know there is a new person in the village. So that has been very helpful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's beautiful, and as you described that, it reminds me a little bit of the neighborhood where I grew up. So I'm getting to be pretty old, but something very similar. You know, so many people thinking the same way about what's good and right, and being concerned about their neighbors. And we had, not big houses, and so we did more living outside, and but very much aware of one another. And certainly as a child, you know, I had the experience of if I were in a neighbor's house or, you know, with friends, I was being expected to act the same way as I was at home, and those parents had the same expectations. And if I was acting up, the word of that would probably get home before I did, you know. So, but it was very beautiful, and I'm aware, you know, that that's not the experience of so many people anymore. I think again, as I listen, it occurs to me, we have a very strong Protestant influence in the United States, you know, in terms of our understanding of Christianity, and that tends to be, it's a generalization, tends to be more individualistic, and so I think that the privatization of religion has come here, you know, to be more the experience, and then certainly it's been a growing trend of individualism, and even, you know, the people describe now a growing sense of loneliness or aloneness of people in this country, which just, you know, pulls against that idea of community. What, as you are a pastor now of St. Bernard's, you know, every pastor has challenges, and describe again. You love your parishioners; they know it, and I do too. So, but can you describe what maybe you find in the culture here, or not particularly that parish, but just in general that sort of works against the growth of community and maybe a spirit that might draw other people into the life of faith more naturally. Is that a fair question?
Yes. Interestingly, there had been so many things I have seen and learned here that if I am back in my diocese in Nigeria today, I will definitely use those experiences because it will be very helpful. And then there are those things from back home in Nigeria that have been helpful for me here as well. So both sides have the good things and the challenging things. So, and I won't easily say this is best or better than the other. They are all unique in their different ways. But generally, you know, when you look at the economic situation in Nigeria, the cultural orientation with the foundations of our traditions in Nigeria, and the community life that I already described, we go into our belief practices with these three things playing a very big role. So because of poverty, we depend on one another so much. We rely on one another, and that brings a lot of people to God, brings a lot of people to a life of prayer. It's like there is that belief that if I go to church, if I pray to God, my situation will change. And here in America, what I've observed, sometimes I tell my parishioners, I said, you guys don't know what you have. Like the environment, the culture around here, what we think are challenging here for us back home are just glorious things. So those two aspects are key. They are very important. People seem to be a bit more comfortable here, not depending on anyone. A young person, 17, 18, already works and makes some money for themselves. And it's not exactly the same way with us in Nigeria. So these factors, I think, influence the participation in our religious practices and beliefs. The number of people who come to church and all of that, I think that is the dividing line for me from my own observation, that the level of comfort, the level of advancement here makes people to be too individualistic. I can do it all by myself. I don't need anyone, as against the background that I come from in Nigeria. We rely on one another. We trust that if we do this together, if we pray to God, things can change. So that is the one big difference that I observe here. Otherwise, the organization, the leadership style and system in the church here is so much to learn from.
Well, thank you, and thanks for sharing that. I just know in my own life, when I become more comfortable and kind of satisfied, it's sometimes harder to pray, sometimes harder to really have my focus on the things that last and on the life to come, because I kind of get settled here. So it's been I think the experience in the church over time that sometimes it's harder to survive prosperity than adversity, in terms of our faith, that we can become too comfortable. But as a part of the reason I'm so grateful that you're here in our archdiocese is because you bring such a beautiful perspective from your own background and are experiencing something that's enriching your own experience. It's ideally always an exchange of gifts, but I think that's it's what's happening. You bring a gift of yourself and your ministry, but also your experience and your perspective. So I'll put you on the spot a little bit if you want to give me some advice. As you know, we've developed the pastoral vision here for the archdiocese. It's focused on Jesus, centered really on him, but outward looking, the desire to bring more people to him and to help form ourselves as disciples of Jesus, missionary disciples who want to be close to him, but also who want to share the faith. Is there's something that you see that you think we should give more attention to, or maybe work harder on, or maybe a thought from your experience in the Diocese of Minna that you think would help me to think and pray about that in a new way?
Okay, thank you for the opportunity to be able to say something about this. This is an observation I have made, even to some brother priests here in Omaha. The number of young people who come to church is very, very low.
Yeah.
And the reasons I see is because we pay more attention to very many other priorities that are good, but we don't give the same amount of priority to the religiosity of these young people, their belief pattern, and how much they grow in the faith. When these young people are in school, they only attend school masses and possibly do religious education because they go to Catholic schools. Outside of that, we don't see them in church. They don't come to weekend masses and all of that. So at St. Bernard's, and even when I was at Pius, that was always my emphasis, how to get these young people around. So I try to go deep into the life of these young people in the school and attract them to be interested in coming to the church. And if there is a way that we can really pay attention to having more young people in our churches, otherwise the future is not very, very clear what it will be. We had a bishop in Nigeria, Bishop Joseph Bagubiri. He's dead now. He passed away a few years ago. He used to tell us that sometimes as a priest, as a pastor, stop preaching and teach catechism. He says it's not all the time that you preach. Sometimes the people need catechesis. So we need to teach more catechesis. We need to educate these young people more on the matters of faith, especially at the young age, so that they can grow into it. And I think there is a very good job being done with the religious education, but maybe we need more. Mm-hmm. Maybe we need more. Sometimes I'm going to the church for a program or for mass, and there are young people in the gym for sports. And they use the church facility for sports, but they don't know how the church itself looks like. Mm-hmm. So how do we get these young people into the church, not just the gym?
Yeah, I think you're right on to something. It's a real sadness for any of us as pastors to see that the faith is not being passed on or is not attracting almost a whole generation of younger people. There are a number of young people, young adults especially, who are very involved in the life of the church in this archdiocese, but compared to the total number of their peers, it's relatively small. I'm grateful for them, of course. So I think we're looking at, we have many Catholic schools in the archdiocese. There's one there at St. Bernard's, and so I really am working with the staff here to try to think about how we can, in a more inviting way, approach the parents of all of those students. We know who they are, and they love our schools, and they trust us for the education of their children. But the life of the faith is not right at the center of that for many of them. And you're right, as you should talk about the catechism, that even many adults are not able to articulate often what really distinguishes us as followers of Jesus Christ. Many people are good and virtuous in many natural and human ways, but there's something important, distinctive, life-giving, for us when we have a relationship with the Lord, and when the Lord is at the center of our family and of our community. Yeah, well, thanks. That gives me some encouragement to continue to look at that challenge. It is a challenge here, but we're trying to lean into it. It's a challenge all over our country. Other bishops talk about it. The smaller number of the young generation that is being drawn to life in Christ, which is what we desire for them, more than anything. Well, great. I'm so grateful for this conversation. So grateful for you and your pastoral work here in the Archdiocese of Omaha now for several years, and for your brother priest from Minna, who you have helped introduce to the life of the diocese here. They're working in several different parishes, and a great blessing. Particularly as you bring your experience of a vibrant church, a missional church at home, as you bring the experience of pastoring a parish, maybe with several other smaller parishes nearby, and working with them all together. That's for some of our priests a new experience, but it's something that's become part of our life here, and we're learning how to do it. So once again, thanks for taking the time for the conversation, and I'll be praying for you and your parishioners in the days ahead. God bless you.
Thank you, Your Grace.
I'm grateful to have had this opportunity to visit with Father Gadache, who is pastor of St. Bernard Parish here in the Archdiocese of Omaha. Our diocese has been blessed, as I mentioned during our conversation, with a special relationship with the Diocese of Minna, and have welcomed several priests who are working very hard and beautifully here in a variety of parishes. I can't get out of my mind the experience Father described about the horrific attack on a parish church in the Diocese of Minna on Christmas Day several years ago, but also of the response of people whose faith seems to have been strengthened the number of vocations continues to grow, even in the face of persecution. So we want to keep in mind our brothers and sisters in other places in the world, our brothers and sisters in Christ, but especially I ask your prayers for the bishop and the priests and the people of the Diocese of Minna in Nigeria. It's the same Lord who has called us all, and we desire to have life and unity in him. Thanks so much for tuning in. God bless you.